are now the days where we prove that we are capable, I won't say deserving, but capable of becoming Am Israel, the people of the covenant, the people who inherit the kingdom. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 4, the Torah portion, Hazina, which means to give ear. Once again, we return to Deuteronomy, to Devarim, chapter number 32, and we begin reading with verse number 5. A twisted and crooked generation has corrupted itself. Their blemish, they are not his children. Do you do this to Yahweh, O foolish and unwise people? Is he not your father who bought you, who created you and established you? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and let him show you. Your elders, and let them say to you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the children of Israel. For the portion of Yahweh is his people, Yaakov, or Jacob, his allotted inheritance. What are we talking about? The nations of the earth have a pre-described, predetermined, boundaried area that they are going to be given as their inheritance. So when the kingdom of Yah comes to the earth, there are going to be other nations dwelling in the earth, operating according to their governments, but they will be under the authority of Yeshua as the king of the earth, king of Messiah, dwelling and reigning in Israel in the city of Jerusalem. They have a predetermined allotment given to them. That allotment is not determined according to any other factor, at least primarily, but rather that of the size and the description of Am Israel in their land. Abraham in Bereshit, or Genesis chapter 15, was told that from the river of Egypt, or Mitzrayim, we think the Nile, all the way to the Euphrates, which is now in modern day Iran, all of that land is going to be given to Am Israel, to the people, the children of Israel. So we're not talking about the tiny sliver of the sovereign state of Israel as is currently on the map, but a much larger territory. Then Yah is going to situate the other nations according to how Israel is situated. So Israel becomes the hub and the center of the wheel, and all of the other nations began to move out from it. Israel will become the lone superpower in that day. There will only be one. It will be Israel. And Yeshua, our king, will reign over the earth. The nations will come to Jerusalem 3 times a year. And there they will acknowledge the feast days of our Creator Yahweh. That's according to the prophets. So let's understand it this way. From the beginning, the whole idea of creation, the whole idea of the Ark of Noah in his days, saving a particular family alive, and out of their descendants would come Avram or Abraham, and his children, and the patriarchs, the 12 tribes, etc., the building of the nation of Israel. That was all intentioned from the beginning. That was the purpose. That was the design. These last days is also about Israel. Everything is focused on Israel. So all things previous to this people being birthed was for their benefit and their establishment. Israel is currently still shaping the earth. And then we're told that the alignment of nations in the last days will again be according to Israel. Israel was, is, and always will be the center focal point of what Yah is doing in the earth. Here in this nation, as Americans, we tend to see the world through American eyes for American benefit and American desires. We try to impose our will on other nations. It will not be so in that day. It will all be about Israel. And so, that being understood, it qualifies all the events that we see in the earth today a little differently. As we read the news, print, social media, hear the broadcast, listen to the radio, we tend to, again, filter it through American eyes and ears. Currently, the state of affairs in the earth as the nations are relating to the nation of America, things are not so good. They've been much better. They're not so good. We also have to consider that in other nations in the earth, they're not worried about how things are affecting America. They're thinking about how is it affecting England and Australia and nations in the Orient, Asia. They're looking through their own eyes. We have seen in recent years the Islamification, if there's such a word, of Europe. Vast numbers of Islamic refugees have infiltrated and flooded the borders of Europe. So much so that there is now challenges as to social structure, order, and preference in European nations. We are seeing nuclear threats still building and building again out of North Korea. There are changeovers in administrations in a variety of countries. In Australia, there has been strict COVID rules that have been imposed from what we read in the news. And you wonder, how did it come to that? How could personal rights and freedoms be given up so easily? Well, just look in America, we're seeing the same thing. How is it that the world has turned upside down so quick? Our southern border has become extremely open and porous. We no longer have a southern border in many respects. The recent debacle in Afghanistan, we're still covering our eyes and our heads in shame as to how we can leave Americans behind. The current trend now is for inflation to rise rapidly. Sometimes you just want to throw up your hands and say, where did we go? What do we do? How did it come to all this? Why is all this? Why all these things why are they happening? What's going on? The earth is being refined. Evil is being exposed. Agendas are being exposed. And Yah is shaking the earth. We go back to the book of Bereshit, or Genesis, chapter number 1, and let's read a key verse, verse number 2. And the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep. The terms that are used here are tohu vavohu. Tohu vohu. Emptiness, chaos, formlessness, no structure, a void, and a waste. Well, that would tend to describe current society for us in many respects. Why is it so? Well, when you continue reading verse number 2, you see that the Ruach HaKodesh, the very breath and wind of Yah, hovers over that mess, that chaos, incubating it, vibrating it, preparing it, that the announced word of Yah can enter into that situation and create out of it a structured world that is revealing the light of Yah, the Et Haor. When you read in the book of Hebrews, chapter number 12, verse number 25, take heed not to refuse the one speaking, for if those did not escape who refused the warning on earth, how much less those who turn away from him from heaven, whose voice shook the earth then, but now he's promised, saying, yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also the heaven. And this once more makes clear the removal of what is shaken as has been made, so that the unshaken matters may remain. We are receiving an unshakable kingdom. And for that to take place, all the garbage has got to get out. Are you willing to endure the days to become the people of Yah while the shaking's going on? We'll talk about this tomorrow. Until then, shalom.